The advertisement in the Silver Creek Gazette seemed simple enough. Rancher seeks cook, room and board included, wages negotiable. But Clara Lawson stared at those words like they were her last chance at survival, because in Montana Territory, during the spring of 1876, options for a woman alone were about as scarce as water in a drought. She folded the newspaper carefully and tucked it into her worn carpetbag, glancing around the dusty street of Victor, Montana, a town that had sprung up along the rail line just 3 years prior. The buildings still looked fresh-cut, their pine boards not yet weathered gray by the relentless mountain winds. Clara had arrived on the morning train with exactly $4 to her name, a decent hand with cooking, and absolutely nowhere else to go. Her aunt's death instant. Louis 2 months ago had left her without family, and the creditors had taken everything, down to the hair combs that had belonged to her mother. The ranch was 5 miles outside town, according to the postmaster who had eyed her traveling dress with barely concealed curiosity. Women traveling alone always drew attention, and not the kind Clara wanted. She was 22 years old, dark-haired, and had been told more than once that her green eyes were striking, but right now she felt about as striking as a muddy boot. 3 days on the train had left her exhausted, her clothes rumpled, and her nerves frayed thin as cotton thread. She hired a wagon from the livery for 50 cents, money she could ill afford to spend, but walking 5 miles in her button-up boots seemed like a worse option. The driver was an older man with kind eyes who said little, which suited Clara just fine. She spent the ride rehearsing what she would say, how she would present herself as capable and reliable despite having no references, no connections, and no real plan beyond getting through the next day. The ranch appeared gradually as they crested a low rise, spreading out in a valley between pine-covered hills. It was more substantial than Clara had expected, with a main house built of logs, a large barn, several outbuildings, and fenced pastures where horses grazed. Cattle dotted the hillsides in the distance, and smoke rose from the chimney of the main house, a sign of life that made her heart beat faster with nervous anticipation. The driver let her off at the front of the house and tipped his hat before turning back toward town. Clara stood there for a long moment, carpetbag in hand, before climbing the 3 wooden steps to the porch. The door opened before she could knock. The man who stood there was tall, probably 6 feet or more, with broad shoulders that filled the doorframe. He looked to be in his late 20s, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of a stormy sky. His face was weathered from sun and wind, with lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled sometimes, though he was not smiling now. He wore work clothes, denim pants, and a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle. Everything about him spoke of hard physical labor and a life lived outdoors. "Help you?" His voice was deep, cautious. "I am here about the position," Clara said, lifting her chin to project more confidence than she felt. "The advertisement for a cook." Something shifted in his expression, surprise maybe, followed by what might have been relief. "You came all the way out here for that." "I came from St. Louis," Clara said. "I saw the advertisement and took the train. I am a good cook, I work hard, and I need the position." He studied her for a long moment, and she resisted the urge to fidget under his gaze. Finally, he stepped back and gestured for her to enter. "Come in. Name's Harrison Young." "This is my ranch, Clara Lawson." She stepped into the house and immediately understood why he needed a cook. The main room was large, with a stone fireplace, rough-hewn furniture, and a layer of dust over everything that was not immediately necessary for daily survival. Dishes were stacked in a basin by the dry sink, and the smell of burnt coffee hung in the air. "I will be honest with you, Miss Lawson," Harrison said, closing the door behind her. "I am not much for housekeeping. Ranch keeps me busy dawn to dark, and eating's been more about staying alive than enjoying anything. Had a cook until 2 months ago, old fellow named Pete who could make anything taste good, but he passed in his sleep. Been making do since then, but it is not working out." Clara set down her bag, surveying the room with a practiced eye. "I can see that," she said, then caught herself. "I mean no offense, Mr. Young, but yes, it looks like you need help. None taken. It is a mess, I know it." He ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. "Question is, why would someone from St. Louis come all the way to Montana Territory for a cooking job?" Clara had known this question would come. She met his eyes directly. "My aunt died. She was my last living relative. After settling her debts, I had nothing left and no reason to stay. I wanted to go west, start fresh. Your advertisement seemed like fate. It was the truth, mostly." She left out the part about Robert Manning, the banker's son who had proposed marriage and gotten angry when she refused, angry enough to spread rumors that cost her the job she had at a boarding house. She left out the part about being desperate enough to consider accepting his proposal just for the security, until she realized that trading her freedom for safety was no trade at all. Harrison nodded slowly. "Fair enough. You do any ranch cooking? It is different from city cooking." "I cooked for a boarding house with 20 residents," Clara said. "Large quantities, hearty food, and I know how to make a little stretch a long way. I can bake bread, make stews, preserve vegetables, butcher chickens, and I am willing to learn anything I do not already know." "You know how to use a rifle," that surprised her. "I can learn. Mountain lions, bears sometimes. You will be here alone when I am out with the herd or up in the high pastures. Need to know you can protect yourself." His tone was matter of fact, not trying to scare her. "I understand." He glanced around his own house as if seeing it through fresh eyes. "Room is off the back, used to be Pete's. It is clean, has a bed and a stove for heat. Pay is $30 a month plus room and board. You do the cooking and basic housekeeping. Laundry too if you are willing, but that is separate negotiation. I have got 2 ranch hands, brothers named Carl and Tom Anderson. They live in the bunkhouse. They are good men, respectful. You will be cooking for all of us." $30 a month was more than Clara had hoped for. In St. Louis, she had made $18 at the boarding house with no room included. "That is acceptable," she said, trying not to sound too eager. "Want to see the kitchen? Make sure it will work for you." She did want to see it very much. Harrison led her through the main room to a large kitchen area. It had a good cast iron stove, a pump for water right at the sink, which was a luxury, and plenty of workspace. The cupboards were well built, and there was a pantry that opened off to one side. Everything was dirty and disorganized, but the bones were good. "This will do nicely," Clara said, already mentally planning how she would clean and arrange everything. "When can you start?" "Today, if you like. I have nowhere else to be." Harrison actually smiled at that, a small expression that changed his whole face, making him look younger and considerably more handsome. "Today would be good. Been eating my own cooking for too long. I will show you the room, let you get settled. Dinner is usually around 6 if you can manage something by then." "I can manage." Clara felt the first flutter of hope she had experienced in months. This could work. This could actually work. The room was indeed clean, larger than she expected, with a narrow bed covered in a faded quilt, a small dresser, and a washstand. A window looked out over the back of the property toward the mountains. It was spare and simple, but it was hers, at least for now. She set her carpetbag on the bed and turned to find Harrison still standing in the doorway. "Thank you," she said, "for giving me a chance without references or much of anything to recommend me. "You came all this way on faith," he said. "Least I can do is return the favor. Besides, I am desperate enough that I would have hired about anyone who could boil water without burning it." She laughed, surprising herself. "I promise I can do better than that." "Good to hear." He hesitated, then added, "Welcome to the ranch, Miss Lawson. Hope you will find it suits you." After he left, Clara sat on the bed for just a moment, letting herself feel the relief of having a place to sleep, a job, and a chance. Then she stood, unpacked her few belongings, and went to tackle the kitchen. She had work to do. The state of the pantry was both better and worse than she expected. Better because there were supplies, flour and cornmeal and dried beans, salt pork and coffee. Worse because it was all jumbled together with no organization, and half of it was going stale from improper storage. Clara rolled up her sleeves and spent the first hour cleaning, scrubbing surfaces, washing dishes, and creating order from chaos. She found a good ham hanging in the cold cellar, along with potatoes and some withered carrots that would work in a stew. The physical labor felt good, purposeful. She pumped water and heated it on the stove, washed every dish and pot, then started on dinner. Ham with red-eye gravy, boiled potatoes, carrots, and biscuits. Simple, hearty food that would stick to a working man's ribs. She found a jar of preserves in the pantry, some kind of berry, and set it on the table along with fresh butter from the cold cellar. By 6 o'clock, the kitchen smelled like food instead of burnt coffee, and the table was set for 4. Clara had changed into her other dress, a simple gray cotton that was more practical for kitchen work, and pinned her hair up more securely. She heard boots on the porch, male voices, and then Harrison entered with 2 other men. The Anderson brothers were easy to tell apart despite being siblings. Carl was stocky and fair-haired with a round, friendly face. Tom was taller, darker, with a more serious expression. Both of them stopped short when they saw the table. "This is Miss Clara Lawson," Harrison said. "She is our new cook. Miss Lawson, these are my hands, Carl and Tom Anderson." "Madam," they said in near unison, removing their hats. "Please sit," Clara said. "Dinner is ready." She served them, then hung back, uncertain of the protocol. Harrison noticed. "You eating?" "I was not sure if I should join you or eat in the kitchen." "You worked as hard as any of us today, probably harder given what you walked into. Sit down." So she did, taking the 4th chair at the table. The men ate with the focused intensity of people who had been doing physical labor all day. No one spoke for the first few minutes, and Clara worried that the food was not good, that she had already failed somehow. Then Carl looked up, his mouth full of biscuit, and said, "This is real good, madam. Best meal I had in months." Tom nodded agreement. "Thought I had forgotten what decent gravy tasted like." Harrison said nothing, but he reached for a second biscuit, and Clara noticed his plate was nearly clean. She relaxed slightly. They liked the food. That was a start. "Where you from, Miss Lawson?" Tom asked. "St. Louis most recently." "But I was born in Ohio." "That is a long way to come." "It is," she agreed. "But Montana seems nice so far." "Wait until winter," Carl said with a grin. "Then you can judge." They talked a bit more, easy conversation about the ranch, the cattle, the weather. Clara mostly listened, learning the rhythms of their speech, the relationship between them. Harrison was clearly the boss, but he treated the brothers with respect, and they returned it. There was an ease between them that spoke of long association. After dinner, the men retired to the front room while Clara cleaned up. She had just finished washing the last pot when Harrison appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Need any help?" "I am finished, but thank you." He nodded, looking around at the now clean kitchen. "You did good work today." "All of this, I mean, not just the cooking. It is what you hired me for. Still, I appreciate it." He shifted his weight, looking like he wanted to say something else. Finally, he pulled out a few bills from his pocket. "Advance on your wages so you have some money for anything you need. Can ride into Victor with me on Saturday if you want. Pick up supplies or personal items." Clara took the money, surprised and touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Mr. Young. That is very kind." "Harrison," he said. "Just Harrison is fine. We are not formal out here." "Then you should call me Clara, Clara." He said her name like he was testing it out. "Good night, then. If you need anything, I am right upstairs." After he left, Clara finished tidying the kitchen, banked the fire in the stove, and went to her room. She changed into her nightgown, brushed out her hair, and climbed into bed. The mattress was more comfortable than she expected, and the quilt smelled like fresh air and sunshine, as if someone had washed it recently. Harrison, probably, trying to make the room nice for whoever he hired. She lay in the darkness, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch. Horses moving in the barn, the wind in the pine trees, the creak of the house settling. It was so different from St. Louis, from the constant noise of the city, the clatter of carriages and the shouts of street vendors. Here, there was space and silence and the vast sky she had glimpsed at sunset, streaked with orange and purple. Clara thought about Harrison Young, the lonely cowboy who needed someone to cook. There was something in his eyes, a sadness or a solitude that she recognized because she carried the same thing. They were both alone in their own ways, both trying to build something out of whatever pieces they had left. She was here to cook and keep house, nothing more. But as she drifted towards sleep, she could not help wondering what his story was, what had brought him to this ranch in Montana territory, and why a man who seemed capable and decent was living by himself in a house too big for one person. The days fell into a rhythm. Clara woke before dawn to start the stove and put coffee on, then made breakfast. Eggs when the chickens were laying well, which they started to do more regularly once she began feeding them properly. Bacon or salt pork, biscuits or cornbread, sometimes hot cakes if she had time. The men ate quickly and headed out to whatever work the day demanded, leaving Clara to her own tasks. She cleaned the house from top to bottom in the first week, tackling one room each day. Harrison's bedroom she left mostly alone, just swept and dusted, but she washed the linens and mended a tear in one of his shirts that she found in a basket of neglected laundry. The main room got a thorough scrubbing, and she rearranged the furniture slightly to make better use of the space. She found curtains in a trunk, probably made by some woman before her time, and hung them in the windows. They made the house feel more like a home. The cooking itself was satisfying in a way her work at the boarding house had never been. There, she had been one of 3 cooks, following someone else's menus, preparing food for people she barely knew. Here, she could plan the meals herself, use her creativity, and see the immediate results. The men appreciated everything she made, but she started to notice what they liked best. Carl loved anything sweet, so she made pies and cakes when supplies allowed. Tom preferred savory, hearty stews and roasts. Harrison ate everything without complaint, but she caught him going back for seconds when she made pot roast with vegetables, so she made that often. In the evenings, after dinner was cleaned up, Clara usually retreated to her room to read by lamplight. She had brought 3 books from St. Louis, worn volumes she had read multiple times but could not bear to part with. Sometimes she heard the low rumble of male voices from the main room, Harrison and the brothers talking about the ranch, playing cards, or just sitting in companionable silence. Saturday came, and Harrison drove her into Victor in the wagon. It was a clear spring morning, the air cool but warming as the sun climbed higher. Clara sat beside him on the wagon seat, acutely aware of his presence, the way his hands held the reins with easy confidence, the breadth of his shoulders next to her. Anything specific you need?" He asked as they drove. "Fabric, if the general store has any. I would like to make new curtains for the kitchen, and some spices if they have them. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, they make a big difference in baking. Get whatever you need. I trust your judgment." In town, Harrison helped her down from the wagon, his hand warm and steady on her arm. "I've got business at the bank and the feed store. Meet you back here in 2 hours." Clara agreed and watched him walk away, his long stride eating up the distance. She turned toward the general store, looking forward to the simple pleasure of shopping with money in her pocket and no one to answer to. The store was well stocked for a frontier town, with everything from farm equipment to ladies' notions. Clara took her time, selecting fabric in a cheerful yellow that would brighten the kitchen, spices that would expand her cooking options, and a few personal items she had been doing without. The storekeeper's wife, a pleasant woman named Mrs. Henderson, chatted with her while measuring out the fabric. "You are the new cook out at the Young place, aren't you?" "Yes, madam. I started last week." "Harrison is a good man. Went through a hard time a few years back, but he has built that ranch up real nice. You treat him well now." Clara was curious about what hard time meant, but she did not ask. Gossip felt wrong somehow. "He has been very fair with me. That is his way." Mrs. Henderson wrapped the fabric in brown paper and tied it with string. "If you need anything or just want company sometime, you come find me. Can get lonely out there for a woman on her own." "Thank you. I appreciate that." Clara was finishing her shopping when she heard a commotion outside. She stepped to the doorway to see a group of men on horseback riding down the main street, moving fast, their horses lathered. They pulled up in front of the sheriff's office, and the leader dismounted, shouting something she could not quite hear. "Rustlers," Mrs. Henderson said from behind her, her voice tight with worry. "Third time this month. They have been hitting ranches all up and down the valley." Clara felt a cold twist of fear. "Are they dangerous?" "Rustlers always are. Stealing cattle is hanging a fence, so they have got nothing to lose if they get caught. They shoot first usually." Harrison appeared from the bank, his face serious as he took in the scene. He saw Clara and crossed the street quickly. "You done with your shopping?" "Yes, but what is happening?" "Rustlers hit the Mackenzie place last night, took about 50 head. They are getting bolder." He glanced at the agitated group of men. "We should head back. I want to check our herd." The ride home was tense and mostly silent. Clara clutched her packages and tried not to show her nervousness. This was the Wild West, the real thing, not some romanticized story in a dime novel. There were actual dangers here, threats she had not really considered when she took the job. Back at the ranch, Harrison helped her down and carried her packages into the house. "I am going to ride out with Carl and Tom, check the cattle. You stay close to the house, all right, of course. Should I be worried? Just cautious. We have not had trouble here, and I aim to keep it that way." He paused, then added, "You remember I said you should learn to use a rifle?" "Yes. Tomorrow I will teach you. For now there is a shotgun in the cabinet by the front door. It is loaded. You know how to use one, point and pull the trigger." He almost smiled. "Basically, yes. But you have to cock it first, both barrels. Here, I will show you." He retrieved the shotgun, a well-maintained double barrel, and demonstrated how to cock it, how to aim, how to brace for the recoil. Clara paid close attention, her heart beating faster. This was real. This was her life now. "I will be back before dark," Harrison said. "You will be fine." After the men rode out, Clara put away her purchases and started preparing dinner, but she kept glancing out the windows, seeing threats in every shadow. The afternoon stretched long and quiet. She made a chicken pie, one of the hens having stopped laying and met its useful end. The work calmed her nerves somewhat, the familiar motions of rolling dough and chopping vegetables. The men returned as the sun was setting, and Clara felt the tension drain from her shoulders when she heard the horses. Harrison came in first, looking tired but not alarmed. "All there," he said. "Counted twice to be sure. Looks like the rustlers are working the north part of the valley." "That is good news, at least, for now, but we will be keeping closer watch." He washed his hands at the pump. "Something smells good. Chicken pie, you made pie crust, it is not difficult." He shook his head, water dripping from his hair. "It is to me. Pete used to make biscuits mostly." "This is a treat." Dinner was subdued, the men discussing watch schedules and security measures. It was decided that one of them would patrol at night, just to be safe. Clara listened, understanding that her peaceful first week here had been unusual. This was the reality of ranching in Montana Territory in 1876. Rustlers, predators, harsh weather, isolation. It took a certain kind of person to thrive here, and she was not sure yet if she was that person. But after dinner, when Harrison lingered in the kitchen while she cleaned up, she felt a strange sense of belonging. He dried dishes without being asked, working in companionable silence beside her. The lamplight cast shadows on his face, softening the hard edges, and she noticed details she had missed before. The way his hair curled slightly at his collar, the scar on his knuckles, the careful way he stacked the dried plates as if worried he might break them. "You did not have to stay," Clara said. "I know you have an early morning, so do you. Besides, feels wrong to leave you with all the work." He set down the plate he was drying. "Can I ask you something, of course? You ever regret coming here?" "It is not what most people would choose, this life." Clara considered the question carefully. "I have not regretted it yet. It is different from what I knew, but different is not always bad. I feel useful here. Like what I do matters. It does matter. More than you probably realize." He looked at her directly, those gray eyes serious. "This house, it was just a place I slept before you came. Now it feels like a home. That is because of you." She felt warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she could not quite name. "That is kind of you to say. It is the truth." He picked up another plate, breaking the intensity of the moment. "Tomorrow, after breakfast, I will teach you to shoot. Deal, deal." The shooting lesson happened in a clearing behind the barn, far enough from the house that the noise would not spook the horses. Harrison set up targets. Old cans lined up on a fence rail and showed Clara how to hold the rifle, how to sight down the barrel, how to breathe and squeeze the trigger gently. "Pulling it jerks the shot," he explained, standing behind her, adjusting her grip. His hands on her shoulders were warm and steady, and Clara tried to focus on his instructions rather than his proximity. "Squeeze slow, like you are coaxing it." She fired, and the recoil surprised her even though he had warned her. The shot went wide, missing the cans entirely. "Good first try." "Try again, but lean into it more. Use the recoil, do not fight it." It took a dozen tries before she hit her first can, and when she did, Harrison let out a whoop of approval that made her laugh. "There you go. That was perfect." They practiced for an hour, and by the end, Clara was hitting more than she missed. Her shoulder was going to be bruised and her ears were ringing, but she felt accomplished, capable, like she could protect herself if she needed to. "You are a natural," Harrison said as they walked back to the house. "Another few sessions and you will be better than me." "I doubt that very much, but thank you for teaching me. My pleasure." He paused at the porch steps. "Clara, I have been meaning to say, if you ever feel unsafe or uncomfortable here, you tell me. You have got a right to feel secure in your home." "I do feel secure, especially now that I can shoot." She smiled at him. "You have been nothing but respectful and kind, Harrison. I have no complaints." Something in his expression shifted, a softening around his eyes. "Good. That is good." The weeks passed, spring turning toward summer. The days grew longer and warmer, and the ranch hummed with activity. Calves were born, fences were mended, hay was cut in the lower meadows. Clara fell into the rhythm of it all, her life measured in meals and chores, conversations and comfortable silences. She learned things about Harrison in small increments. He had grown up in Colorado, the son of a rancher, and came to Montana 5 years ago to start his own spread. He loved the land with a fierce passion, could read weather in the clouds, knew every inch of his property. He was fair with his men, generous with the neighbors, and unfailingly polite to Clara, sometimes to the point of formality that made her want to tease him. But she also sensed the loneliness in him, the way he sometimes stood on the porch at dusk, staring at the mountains with an expression of such solitude it made her chest ache. Whatever had happened in his past, whatever hard time Mrs. Henderson had alluded to, it had left marks on him that went deeper than the scars on his hands. For her part, Clara found herself settling into life on the ranch in ways she had not anticipated. She started a vegetable garden, tilling a plot behind the house and planting seeds she bought in Victor. She tended it in the early mornings before the heat of the day, finding peace in the simple act of coaxing life from the soil. The chickens began following her around like pets, and she named them, much to Carl's amusement. "They are going to end up in a pot eventually," he pointed out. "I know, but they deserve names in the meantime," Clara said, scattering feed for her flock. She also became friends with Mrs. Henderson in Victor, stopping to visit whenever she went to town. The older woman was kind and chatty, full of information about the area and its people. Through her, Clara learned that Harrison had once been engaged to a woman named Sarah who changed her mind 3 weeks before the wedding and went back east. That had been 3 years ago, and he had not courted anyone since. "Broke his heart," Mrs. Henderson said, shaking her head. "He loved that girl something fierce, but she could not handle the isolation. Some women are not made for this life." Clara thought about that conversation often. She understood why someone might find this life difficult. It was hard work, long days, and yes, isolated. But there was also a freedom here she had never experienced in the city, a sense of space and possibility. She could breathe here. She could be herself without constant judgment or restriction, and if she was honest with herself, she looked forward to the moments she spent with Harrison. The way he thanked her for every meal, as if she was doing something extraordinary rather than just her job. The times he helped her carry water for the garden without being asked. The evening he brought her wildflowers, an awkward gesture accompanied by a mumbled explanation about seeing them on the trail and thinking they were pretty. She put those flowers in a jar on the kitchen table and watched them bloom for a week before they faded. Summer arrived in full, and with it came the hard work of haying. Harrison hired on extra men for the season, and Clara found herself cooking for 8 instead of 4. She did not mind. The kitchen was her domain, and she ruled it with cheerful efficiency, producing meals that kept the men fueled through 14-hour days in the fields. One evening in late July, after the extra men had returned to the bunkhouse, and Carl and Tom had gone to town for a rare night off, Clara and Harrison found themselves alone in the house. She was washing dishes, and he was at the table, doing what he called the books, recording expenses and income in a leather-bound ledger. "Numbers looking good?" Clara asked. "Better than expected. Good hay crop this year, and beef prices are up. If we can get the herd through winter without too much loss, we should be in fine shape." He set down his pencil and rubbed his eyes tiredly. "Means I can fix the barn roof before snow comes. Been putting that off too long." "You work too hard," Clara said without thinking. Says the woman who has been cooking for 8 men and still finds time to keep a garden. "That is different. I enjoy it." "So do I. Enjoy the work, I mean. He closed the ledger. Building something, making the ranch successful, it matters to me, but you are right, I do work too much. Used to have help with the management side, someone to share the load. Your former fiancé, Clara said it before she could stop herself, then winced. I am sorry, that was too personal. No, it is all right. Harrison leaned back in his chair. I guess people talk, small town and all, Mrs. Henderson mentioned it. I was not prying, I promise. I know you were not. He was quiet for a moment, then said, her name was Sarah. We met in Denver and I thought she was the one. Brought her here, thinking she would love the ranch like I did. She tried, I will give her that. Lasted almost a year before she admitted she hated it. The isolation, the work, the winters. She wanted city life, parties, people around. I could not give her that. I am sorry it did not work out. I am not anymore. If she had stayed, we both would have been miserable. She did the right thing, hard as it was at the time. He met Clara's eyes. Made me realize that who I share this life with matters as much as the life itself. Need someone who wants this, not just tolerates it. Clara's heart was beating faster than it should. That makes sense. You want this, don't you? This life, I mean. It is not just a job for you. She turned away from the dishes, drying her hands on her apron. It is more than a job. I feel at home here more than I ever did in St. Louis. I love the space, the mountains, even the hard work. It suits me. I thought so, hoped so anyway. He stood, moving closer. Clara, I have been wanting to say something for a while now, but I did not want to make things awkward or put you in an uncomfortable position. What is it? Her voice came out softer than she intended. I have grown fond of you. More than fond, if I am being honest. You fill up the empty spaces in this house, in my life, in ways I did not expect. I know I hired you to cook, and that is all you signed on for, but I am hoping maybe you feel something too. Clara's breath caught. She had felt it. Of course she had, the growing attraction, the way her heart jumped when he walked into a room, the disappointment on the rare days when he was gone from dawn to dark, and she hardly saw him. But she had told herself it was one-sided, that he was her employer and nothing more. I do feel something, she said carefully, but I worry about what happens if this does not work out. I need this job, this place. I have nowhere else to go. You will always have a place here no matter what. I promise you that. He took another step closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes. But I am hoping you will want to stay not as an employee, but as something more. What are you asking? I am asking if I can court you proper. Take you to dinner in Victor, sit with you in the evenings, spend time with you not as your boss, but as a man who cares for you deeply and wants to know if this feeling between us is real. Clara felt tears sting her eyes, but they were good tears, happy tears. It is real, she whispered. At least for me it is. For me too. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When she did not, he cupped her face gently in his calloused hands. Can I kiss you? Yes. His kiss was soft and careful, almost tentative, as if he was afraid she might shatter. Clara rose on her toes, kissing him back, pouring into it all the feelings she had been holding back for weeks. His arms came around her, pulling her close, and she felt safe and wanted in a way she had never experienced before. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Harrison rested his forehead against hers. Been wanting to do that for a long time. Me too. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other, before the sound of horses approaching made them step apart. Carl and Tom were back, earlier than expected, their laughter carrying across the yard. Harrison and Clara exchanged a glance, and she saw her own happiness reflected in his eyes. To be continued, he asked. Definitely. The courtship that followed was sweet and uncomplicated. Harrison took her to dinner in Victor the following Saturday, to a small restaurant that served surprisingly good steak and had tablecloths on every table. Clara wore her best dress, dark blue with a fitted bodice, and Harrison wore a suit she had never seen before. He looked uncomfortable in the formal clothes but devastatingly handsome. "You clean up well," she told him, and he laughed. "Was thinking the same about you. I mean, you always look nice, but tonight you are beautiful." She blushed, pleased by the compliment. Over dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Harrison told her about growing up on his father's ranch, learning to ride before he could walk, and the falling out that led to him striking out on his own. Clara told him about her parents, both dead of fever when she was 12, and the aunt who raised her with a combination of practicality and affection. "She taught me to cook," Clara said. "Said every woman should know how to feed people, because food is love made visible." She was right about that. Every meal you make, I feel cared for. That is how I intend it. After dinner, they walked through the town, which was quiet on this summer evening. Harrison took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers, and Clara felt giddy as a schoolgirl. When they passed other townspeople, she saw the curiosity in their eyes, the whispers that would surely follow. Let them talk. She was happy, and that was all that mattered. On the ride home, under a sky full of stars, Harrison told her about his hopes for the ranch. Expanding the herd, breeding better horses, maybe even starting a small lumber operation in the high timber. He had ambitions, dreams of building something lasting, and Clara loved listening to him talk, his voice full of passion and purpose. "What about you?" he asked. "What do you want beyond what you have now?" Clara thought about it. "I want a family someday, children, a home that is truly mine. I want to put down roots and watch them grow deep. That sounds good to me, real good." He glanced at her, then back at the road. "Clara, I know it is early and maybe I should wait, but I am not a patient man when I know what I want, and I want a future with you. I want to marry you, have those children, build that home. What do you say?" Her heart felt too big for her chest. "Are you proposing?" "I am, or trying to. I do not have a ring yet, but I will get you one, a good one. I just need to know if you would say yes if I asked proper." "Yes," Clara said, the word coming out on a sob of joy. "Yes, I would say yes." He pulled the wagon to a stop right there on the road and kissed her under the stars, and Clara thought she had never been happier in her entire life. They were married in September, 6 weeks after his proposal, in a simple ceremony at the church in Victor. Mrs. Henderson helped Clara make a dress, white cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs. Harrison wore the same suit from their first dinner, and he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world as she walked down the aisle toward him. Carl and Tom stood up as witnesses along with Mrs. Henderson. The ceremony was brief, the words solemn and binding. When the preacher said, "You may kiss your bride," Harrison did so thoroughly, making Clara blush and the small congregation laugh. The reception was held at the ranch, a party that grew as neighbors and friends showed up with food and gifts. Someone had a fiddle, and there was dancing in the yard as the sun set and lanterns were lit. Clara danced with Harrison, her husband now, and felt like she was floating. This life, this man, this place, it was all more than she had ever hoped for. That night in the main bedroom that was now hers too, Harrison carried her over the threshold and set her down gently. "Nervous?" he asked, a little, but happy. "Me too, both things." He cupped her face, his touch tender. "I love you, Clara Young. I love you too, Harrison." Their wedding night was sweet and passionate, a discovery of each other that left them both breathless and amazed. Afterward, Clara lay in Harrison's arms, her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "This is real, is it not?" she murmured. "I did not dream it. Real as anything." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "You are my wife now. You filled every empty space I had, Clara. Made me whole again." You did the same for me." The first year of their marriage was busy and joyful. Clara continued to cook and keep house, but now it was her house, her home, and that made all the difference. She and Harrison worked side by side, building their life together. In the spring, they learned she was pregnant, and the joy on Harrison's face when she told him was something Clara would remember forever. "A baby," he kept saying, wonder in his voice. "We are having a baby." The pregnancy was relatively easy, though the summer heat made her tired, and the morning sickness lasted longer than she would have liked. Harrison was attentive and protective, sometimes overly so, which made her laugh. "I am not made of glass," she told him when he insisted on carrying her across a puddle. "You are carrying our child. I am going to be careful with you." Their son was born in February of 1877 during a snowstorm that left the ranch buried in white. The doctor from Victor could not make it, but Mrs. Henderson did, arriving on skis with her midwife bag. The labor was long and hard, but when Clara finally held her baby boy, she forgot all the pain. "What should we name him?" Harrison asked, his voice choked with emotion as he looked at his son. "I was thinking Henry Young. What do you think?" "I think it is perfect. Hello, Henry, I am your papa." Henry grew fast, a healthy, happy baby who brought even more life and laughter into the house. Harrison was a devoted father, cradling his son with a gentleness that contrasted with his rough hands and weathered face. Clara would sometimes find him in the nursery late at night, just watching Henry sleep. A look of such love and amazement on his face it made her fall in love with him all over again. 2 years later, they had a daughter, born in the spring with none of the drama of Henry's birth. They named her Grace, and she was a calm, sweet baby who rarely cried. The house was full now, with children's laughter and toys scattered around, and Clara could hardly remember what the silence had been like before. Carl got married to a girl from Victor, a pretty blonde named Alice who was every bit as kind as her husband. Tom followed suit a year later, marrying a widow with 2 young children who needed a good man in their lives. Both couples built houses on the ranch land, Harrison giving them each a plot and help with the construction. The ranch was becoming a community, a family, and that was exactly what Harrison wanted. "We are building something that will last," he told Clara one evening as they watched the sunset from their porch, their children playing in the yard. "Something bigger than just us. I know. It is wonderful. Could not have done it without you. You are the heart of all this, Clara." She leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the security of his arm around her. "We did it together." The years passed in the way of happy lives, marked by milestones and memories. Henry grew into a sturdy boy who loved horses and followed his father everywhere. Grace was quieter but smart as a whip, learning to read before she was 5. They had a third child, another boy they named Jacob, who was born in 1881 and completed their family. The ranch prospered. Harrison's hard work and vision paid off, and they became one of the most successful operations in the valley. They added more land, built a new barn and bred horses that were sought after throughout Montana territory. Clara took pride in their success, knowing she had contributed to it, not just with her cooking but with her partnership, her support, her love. When Montana became a state in 1889, they celebrated with a party at the ranch, inviting everyone they knew. Harrison gave a toast, standing on the porch with Clara beside him, their children at their feet. "To Montana," he said, raising his glass, "our home and our future." And to my wife, who took a chance on a lonely cowboy who just needed someone to cook, and ended up giving him everything he never knew he needed. Clara felt tears sting her eyes as everyone cheered. She looked at Harrison. This man she had married 13 years ago on faith and hope, and felt overwhelming gratitude for the life they had built together. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the children were in bed, they sat together on the porch as they often did, watching the stars come out. "Do you ever think about that day you showed up here?" Harrison asked. "All the way from St. Louis with nothing but a carpet bag and determination." "I think about it sometimes. How scared I was, how uncertain. I had no idea what I was walking into." "I did not either. I just knew I needed help with the cooking." He laughed softly. "Best decision I ever made, putting that advertisement in the paper. Best decision I ever made was answering it. You filled every empty space I had, Clara. Made this house a home, made me whole, gave me a family. I cannot imagine my life without you in it." "You will never have to," she promised, taking his hand. "I am here for as long as you will have me." "Forever, then. That is how long I want you." Forever sounds perfect. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who had found each other against the odds and built something beautiful together. The ranch spread out around them in the darkness, solid and real, a testament to their hard work and shared dreams. Inside the house, their children slept safely. Beyond the porch, the land stretched toward the mountains, wild and free and full of possibility. Clara thought about the girl she had been, arriving in Montana territory with nothing, desperate and alone. That girl would hardly recognize the woman she had become, confident and loved, with a family and a home that was truly hers. Life had brought her here to this ranch, to this man, and she was grateful every single day. "I love you," she said softly. "I love you too," Harrison replied. "Always have, always will." And under the vast Montana sky, surrounded by everything they had built together, they knew it was true. The lonely cowboy had found someone who filled every empty space, and the woman who came to cook had found a home and a love that would last forever. Their story was not dramatic or complicated. It was simple and true, built on mutual respect, hard work, and a love that grew deeper with each passing year. They faced challenges together, celebrated victories together, and raised their children to understand the value of family and land and commitment. As the years went on, Henry took over more of the ranch operations, proving himself as capable as his father. Grace married a schoolteacher and moved to Victor, where she opened a small bookstore. Jacob, the youngest, had his father's love for horses and started a breeding program that became famous throughout the state. Clara and Harrison grew old together, their hair turning gray, their hands gnarled with arthritis, but their love never diminishing. They remained partners in every sense, supporting each other through the inevitable losses and sorrows of life, celebrating the joys together. When Harrison passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 78, Clara grieved deeply, but found comfort in their children and grandchildren, in the ranch that still stood strong, in the memories of a life well lived together. She lived another 5 years, spending her time with her family, tending a smaller garden and writing down the stories of their life for future generations. She died on a spring morning, much like the morning she had first arrived at the ranch so many years ago. Her children found her in her chair on the porch, a smile on her face as if she had seen something wonderful. They buried her next to Harrison, under the pine trees they had both loved, with a simple headstone that read, "Clara Young, beloved wife and mother who filled every empty space with love." The ranch continued, passed down through the generations, but the story of Harrison and Clara became legend in the family. The lonely cowboy who had needed someone to cook, and the brave woman from St. Louis who had come west with nothing but faith. They had found each other at exactly the right moment, two people whose empty spaces fit together perfectly, creating something whole and beautiful and lasting. Their love story was not remarkable for its drama, but for its authenticity. They had built a life together based on respect, partnership, and genuine affection. They had worked hard, raised good children, and created a home that was a refuge and a joy. They had proven that sometimes the simplest needs lead to the most profound connections, that a job cooking could become a calling, and that lonely spaces in the heart could be filled completely by the right person. In the end, that was their legacy, not just the successful ranch or the family they raised, but the example they set of what true partnership looked like. Harrison had needed someone to cook, and Clara had needed a job and a place to belong. What they gave each other was so much more, filling not just the empty spaces but overflowing into a life rich with love, purpose, and contentment. The ranch still stands today, run by Harrison and Clara's descendants, who tell the story to their own children on summer evenings. They speak of a time when Montana was still a territory, when life was hard but hearts were open, and two people found each other against the odds. They speak of love that started with a simple need and grew into something that lasted beyond lifetimes, a testament to the power of opening your heart to possibility. And somewhere, in the wind that blows through the pine trees and across the meadows, in the solid walls of the house and the land that stretches toward the mountains, the love of Harrison and Clara still lives on, filling the empty spaces with warmth and light, just as it always has, just as it always will.